Timtra here, and today we're taking a look at Requisition VR, a new VR action game coming to early access next week, October 20th, that has a strong focus on crafting unique weapons using the various props and objects littered around the world. Wait a minute, if the game's not out yet, how's this guy playing it? Great question, commenter. Here, have a heart. Well, Arcadia VR, the developers of the game, were nice enough to reach out to me and give me a code so I could play early and give you guys my thoughts. I guess you could say I'm somewhat of a pro YouTuber now since I'm getting free shit. But rest assured they're not making me say anything, and I've been extra conscious when writing this script to not let getting the game for free bias my opinion on it. One last thing before we get started here, keep in mind throughout the video that this is an earlier build of the game, and once it releases on early access, the devs have said that they're going to add more stuff. So day one, the game is going to have more content than I'm showing in this video. I had a ton of fun with Requisition VR, and I think the game has potential, but there's definitely room for some more polish, and most importantly, some more content. But stick around till the end of the video for my more detailed first impressions. So as I said before, the main hook of the game is the ability to combine nearly every object in the world to create unique weapons. Simply hold down the attach button on one controller, connect the attachment points, and wrap it all up in duct tape. Good old duct tape never lets me down. This was actually way more fun than I expected it to be. You don't need to be worried about physics or anything, so you can create some really goofy inventions. Like the shovel baseball bat katana, which looked stupid and felt clunky, but was surprisingly good at chopping off limbs. Or putting a bunch of knives on a fan to create a sort of like spiked mace. What's really cool is that some props have a unique functionality when you hold the trigger, maybe an axle grinder grinds or lighter lights, and they keep those functionalities once you've attached them to something. So I took this normal axe and I attached an axle grinder to the end of it to make the Giga Axe of Hell. I was still able to use the axe head as a chopping weapon while being able to turn on the axle grinder at the end and using it as a jabbing weapon to grind up zombies. What I thought were really cool though were the unique weapon recipes. So certain items, when you pick them up and press the attach button, will actually display a blueprint. If you find all the ingredients and combine them, you'll get a special weapon with a unique model, which is usually pretty powerful. Like combining this baseball bat and light bulb to create an electric baseball bat, or even on the more wacky side, slapping a can of peaches, a funnel, and a wooden stake together to make a shotgun which shoots trash. So because I'm a god gamer, I actually skipped the tutorial at first, so I had no idea this system was in place. And when I discovered it, I thought it was just hilarious and awesome. I was just sitting there amazed like, holy fuck, did I just make a gun? FBI, open up! You can also feed the junk that you find around the world into crafting stations to make bombs and traps. Honestly, I didn't find the bombs to be too great. There doesn't really seem to be an arming mechanism or button that you have to press to activate them. As soon as they fall to the ground, they blow up. So I had a few situations where I accidentally dropped them and they just went to waste immediately. And I think that's kind of shitty when you have to go through all the trouble to craft it. But the traps, on the other hand, I thought were really cool. There are several different types you can place: pendulums, springboards, and spring traps. And these are pretty interesting because in order for them to work, you have to place an item into them to act as the damage source. For example, for a pendulum trap, you might want to put something bigger inside so that when it swings down, it might hit more zombies. And there's a good variety of ways to trip them off, so you could have pressure plates, tripwires, or even just buttons that you manually activate. But because they require a lot of preparation, these are really just good for defending choke points like stairs or doorways. You can also find some guns throughout the levels, but I didn't find that they took away from the core melee combat focus of the game. The amount of ammo that spawns seems to be tuned fairly well, so you can't just ignore melee. The pistol and assault rifle handling are pretty standard for VR. I think the assault rifles could do a bit more damage, but it wasn't all that bad. The shotgun, on the other hand, was an absolute beast, and it was just so satisfying to use. By the way, I'm playing this on the Meta Quest 2, and here are my specs. Despite my PC being pretty low spec for VR and technically not even meeting the requirements of this game, it actually ran pretty well even when I was recording. I was pleasantly surprised. So the version of the game which I have access to has 2 story mode maps, which can be played in either single player or co-op with up to 4 players. The first map is more of a defensive, tutorial-like mission, which pits you against waves of zombies once you've completed all the other objectives and prepared the house for defense. COD Zombies style. Second map is set in a gas station, and your objective is to repair the bus that you're traveling around in. I like this map more because it spawns the zombies in more organically as you complete the objectives, kind of like Left 4 Dead. The first map's focus on defense was kind of cool, but once you defeat the zombies that are roaming around the house, you really are in no danger until you complete all the other objectives. There's just nothing to fight. So it felt a little bit slow-paced at times, and I just preferred the second map a little bit more. Also, just to quickly mention, there is a story technically, but it's just basically like some lines before a mission, just to kind of basically explain why you're there. So if you like games for story, at least right now, I can't really say that this game would be for you because there's not really one. Honestly, for me, that's fine because I just want to shoot some zombies, but if that's the type of thing that bothers you and you really value having, there you go. There's also a separate deathmatch mode and some accompanying maps for that, but unfortunately my friend's headset broke, so I wasn't able to test either that or the co-op mode. So I can't address either of those parts of the game right now, but if I ever do a follow-up video, I'll try to get to them if I can. But I definitely can comment on some of the issues that I had while playing. The game does have that typical VR physics object jankiness going on at times. It's definitely not super terrible, especially considering the amount of physics objects which can be on screen, but I've had objects like get stuck in the ground and become inaccessible. I've also had weapons just completely disappear while I'm using them, just get teleported out of reality, and this happened quite a few times. It's not game breaking, but it kind of sucks when you spend 3 minutes to make a weapon and then it just suddenly, Goku instant transmissions out of there. There are also some weapons which were kind of broken or inconsistent, like this stop sign just flailing and not doing anything against these zombies, or more disappointingly, this flamethrower doing basically no damage. The worst glitch I experienced was my left hand becoming completely unable to pick anything up and just immediately dropping it. Funnily, this even dropped the backpack that you use to store items, so I couldn't use it for the rest of the level besides manually walking up to it, bending down, and picking up items from it. Luckily, I'm a god gamer, so I was still able to defeat all the zombies with literally one hand tied behind my back. Speaking of the backpack though, I think it would be really cool if you could place it hovering in the air, kind of like the one in Into the Radius. As of right now, since you need to hold it out, you need to hold it and then take the items out and then put it away and then actually start crafting. Whereas I think it would really speed up the flow of crafting things if you could just place it there and quickly access things as you need while you're doing your crafting. The last minor suggestion I have is that I think that the ambient noise and music could use a little work. The combat music is this short and simple loop, and it gets repetitive pretty fast. And when you're out of combat, sometimes it seems like there's almost no sound at all. Even if it's not music per se, it would be nice to hear metal creeping, dogs barking in the distance, wind whistling through the trees. Like I alluded to at the beginning though, I think the biggest question is the amount of content. The maps that I played were pretty small, and single player wise, I saw all the content there was to see in about 4 hours. Hey guys, so I'm in editing here, and I've got some new info from the devs which didn't make it into the first recording. Requisition is going to launch with 2 new maps as well as a horde mode, and during the early access phase they're planning on adding in new maps as well as considering adding in a sandbox mode. I like the idea of a horde mode because as I was playing, I thought one of the things that was missing was a way to jump into the action a bit faster and test things out. And it could add a good amount of replayability to the game because, unlike just being told to complete a mission, with a horde mode, players can be challenged to beat their own score, whether that be rounds survived, how long you can last, or however they decide to implement it. That's all I have from the editing room. Now back to the normal video for the conclusion. Overall, right now, I think that Requisition VR has a solid foundation gameplay-wise. It just needs a little bit more polish and more content. I'm excited to see where this game goes as it works its way through early access, and I'm even more excited to see what you guys think when it comes out. If it seems like there's enough interest, I might end up making a follow-up review to cover the new content and go into a little bit more detail about what I think of the game. If you're watching this in the future and it's already out, tell me what you think in the comments about the game. I read all of them, and I love to hear what people have to say about the games I play. That's it for me. Click the tile on screen if you want to go to more content that YouTube thinks you'll like, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more artisanal, handcrafted gaming content.